Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing our focus on Military Month, this time talking about families and the impact of stress on these families, or rather the unique stress that they face. This is a topic that is not only really important, but it is also one that's being discussed quite a bit in the Pentagon and with the area of personnel and readiness. We want to make sure that our service members are not just prepared to be in theater, but are prepared as a whole family to participate in these activities. I'm going to go ahead and bring my dad on right now, and we are connecting. It is common to, oh, got a little bit of feedback again.
I think it'll be all right.
Are you sure?
Yeah, yesterday was so tragic. Unfortunately, so that's why I wanted to do maybe a sound check before we go on live. But anyhow, how are you this morning?
Good, good. We are in Topeka, Kansas today.
Topeka.
So I know. I'm getting to the point where I have decidedly seen a lot of cornfields.
You know, it's really kind of funny you bring
Good
that
morning,
up.
Teresa. Yes, Dad.
It's kind of funny you bring that up. One of the things that if you're not from the middle of the country, you don't understand how vast that whole system of food production is, all the way from Ohio all the way across almost to Colorado, and the whole center of the nation is the food basket of this country, and you can't even imagine unless you toured or you've lived it or whatever, what it takes to do. And I think if you ever got there you're pretty close to wheat harvest. You might be running into a lot of the harvest crews out through there and everything. That's an amazing. It's an amazing site. Amazing. So, good luck, Atchison, Topeka, and the railroad. Remember, I don't know if you remember that. Anyhow, that's old news for me.
Yeah, but no, it is really, it is necessary to see this, right?
Yes.
This is not something that you can just read about. And it's little things, like I just passed the sign and it had 3 of the cities listed all on the sign. A typical thing that you see, but it struck me because they were all Indian names.
Yeah.
And again, you know it, you read it, but until you see it, you don't digest the history of this area quite as strongly. We were in St. Louis, Missouri a couple of days ago. We went under the arch, and they have a national park there. And just so people know, national park does not necessarily mean it's outside. It means that it covers. Well, I think people would assume that, right? And it's not always the case. It's an indoor. So it's called the Museum of Westward Expansion, and it tells all of the history of how people were moving through here and the difficulties. And given that yesterday was National Women's Equality Day, I'll point out this one. It was, yes. And so one of the points that was made were that all these women who were coming west initially had rights because they were not part of the United States. And then as they became part of our country, they lost those rights because it went by what was typically British rules and expectations. And so there was a lot of frustration in the area, and I found that really fascinating.
Yeah.
We went literally backwards, as well as westward.
It's not the first time. Will be the last, I'm sure.
We are going forward, Dad.
Yeah. Well,
the girls after me, they are ready. They are ready.
Oh my, yeah. No, I'm not even going to comment on that piece because I already know that train has left the station. That's ready to rock.
Absolutely. Now. Monica just started her ROTC training for the Army. She signed up last Friday. This morning, I got a text from her. She was one of the last cadets to fall out of line. She said, we ran so hard, and she was so excited to see that she was pushed. But there was only one other person ahead of her that managed to keep through.
Great.
And so hats off to her.
Good for her. Good for her. It's a good, just time. Things are coming, and it's coming fast. And I'll just we'll linger on this subject a little longer from the standpoint, you know, and I've also said this in the past, having two girls and looking at the way both of you have all progressed through your lives and never let, any kind of, how should I say, fences or anything be placed around you, and you've exceeded whatever you wanted to do when you wanted to do it. So it's a pride thing with me, and I appreciate everything that you guys do every day. And that's why this is such a unique world, and why we need to see how special that is, because as much as we see wrong here, there's a tremendous amount of right. And I think you're exploring, I guess if there's anything that I've determined through watching all your videos, watching the things, the discussions with the people, I think everyone should listen to most of them, because they should be extremely excited about what the future is coming. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. I mean, all we hear is we listen to negative. For some reason, it seems to permeate what we want to do. But the fact is, there are so much things to be happy about and positive about and progressive that's going on out there that, my goodness, I mean, you're bringing light to it. I don't think there's a lot of people bringing that kind of, shining that light on those kinds of things. God, please keep it up, because we need it. We need it.
I can't believe you're just saying that. I literally was writing a piece this morning, and absolutely, literally, the last line is, and I'm trying to shine a light on all this great work that's happening around the country. Well, Dad, you're smarter than the average bear. But no, you're right. I mean, I'm not coming up with anything new. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not overusing resources of any kind. I'm just simply going and finding the brilliance that exists in our country and shining a light on it. You've hit the nail on the head. I will say one thing, because this struck me, and I think it kind of needs to be said. I had an older woman, and I do get this question, you haven't been in politics, so why are you doing this? And she pushed me a little bit. She basically said, I think you're tremendously talented, you're bright, you're capable, you're knowledgeable, you have unique skills that would benefit this job. So why don't you come home and take a lesser position? And I thought, would somebody have said that to a man? Would someone else say to a man, I think you're capable, so I think you should wait, or I think you should pull back? That's something we hear all the time as women. But all I ever hear from my friends who are men, it's go for it. Go out there, fight as hard as you can, try it. Hey, if you can keep up with the big boys, do it. If you've got something to add to the team, go try out for it. And we're constantly told to wait. So with respect to the woman who said that to me, and other women who have heard it, I think it's time to change the language.
I think I'll just add a little bit to that. I think there's also you always have had the tendency to leap over certain certain things.
Never.
So I'm not going to defend her in her position. I will just say, not everybody wakes up in the morning and decides to go be president of the United States. Okay, maybe there's a few, but not very many. And fortunately, I have one as my daughter that decided to do that. So thank God. I mean, there's people still out there doing that in lesser positions. That's a fear thing. So I think it used to be. People used to worry about hiring people that were smarter than them to, because they might lose their job because they had somebody that was smarter than them in the troop.
Yeah.
I used to tell people that is the dumbest thing ever. Hire the smartest people you can find. Make sure they're there. The only way you're going to get out of there is if somebody as smart as you are going to take over from what you do. So the fact is, you need to hire consistently. You have to hire smart people to do your job. And if you're a leader, you'll never be afraid of smart people. If you're not a great leader, then you should be, and maybe you shouldn't be a leader. That's just the way it is. So, anyhow, we can go on and on about this.
That's exactly what we're doing around the country, isn't it, Dad? We're shining lights on leaders.
Yeah.
And I'm just the connector.
Yeah. Well, and that's what Building a Ready Nation is all about and what your whole tour is about.
So let's talk about these military families and
Yes.
how they help hold up many of our leaders.
Yeah, it was interesting in how I came up with thinking about that. I was challenged by you last week about coming up with a subject, and we'd followed through on quite a few different areas, and so also with some of the people you've interviewed. So I kind of did a little research on that, and I saw that this was one of the number one concerns about folks uh, as members of the military, and also as the ones that have to deal with what deployment really means, and how it disrupts their family life. It's been a long-standing problem. It's been one that I think is stressed out numerous troops. I think, and I'm only going to say this not because I want to continue on the subject. It's one of the stress issues that has led to some of the that we didn't document before. Now we're much aware of the suicide rate within the veteran system, and also within the military. Um, Families are vitally important to an integral part of what life is all about when we live. I mean, and going off to fight a foreign foe somewhere in a foreign land that they're not familiar with, and the family has to sit down and worry, no different than I'm certain, a first responder that has to go every day into a tragic situation, or has to be, cautious around what's going on. These are, until you live that lifestyle, I don't think you can really handle and understand what it takes, and the strength and the support, and the actual idea of buying in to what it takes to be a family member of someone who puts themselves out. And I think what we're trying to say, and we'll go back to the ladies and the men's side, it's just the same as if a woman is a part of the military and has to be deployed, as it is for the man who has to be deployed, because now it's becoming much more real that we're deploying our combat ready and or support ready women into the front, and putting them out there the same way we would with men, which has been a long time coming. And I think, as we pointed out in past discussions, it's long overdue, and it's actually been documented that it's actually contributing to more success than it has in the past. But going back to the family side, why don't you discuss a little bit more about what you've kind of come across in your short tenure at the DoD, on how that's really realized.
Short. I've been working with DoD for quite a while.
Well, you have, but I mean, in action, in their realm, rather than not in their support side. I know what you mean.
Oh, yeah. No,
it's about 15 years or so, right?
Yeah. We're coming up on 15 years. So it's been quite a while. I thought a little bit about this before we came on, and I thought, what is the story that has stuck with me the most? And the one that has really stuck with me is one where I was going around to all the different schoolhouses. A lot of people don't realize, but the military has schoolhouses. Just like you would go to a college or you would go to a high school, they actually have these buildings, and they hold classes, and they look just like lecture halls. And so we were doing a study on how to build up instructors for the military, and there is not a lot of structure. There are some schoolhouses in some locations that have a very wonderful training system. In other cases, it's, you're an expert in Tank 101, let's go have you teach it. And you may have no idea how to teach. So what we were trying to do was have a better understanding of how these people develop and how we can better improve their programs so that they can be better instructors. And can you hear me okay?
Fine.
I feel like I'm really getting a lot of feedback.
No, it's working well for me.
Okay. As we talked with the individuals, I got their life stories, not just their training stories. And time and again, I heard we put a lot of energy, time, and money into somebody, and then we found out they're leaving, in this case, the Marine Corps. One woman in particular, she said, I was 10 years old, and I saw somebody in uniform, and I said, that's who I'm going to be. That's what I want to be. And from that point forward, I decided I was going to be in the Marine Corps. And for a young woman, at 10 years old, 25 years ago, that's a pretty big deal. And to have stuck with it all the way. She gets into the Marine Corps. She loves it. She's excited. She meets her husband. They get married. And then they have a child. In 2 years, she has spent almost no time with her child. Not because she was deployed, but because her hours are so long that she cannot keep her child at home. Her husband has been deployed, opposite of her time, moving around the country. And finally she said, the dream that I had to serve has to end, not because I'm not capable, not because I am not able to do this job, not because I don't love this job, but because the Marine Corps made me choose between my daughter and my service. And that's not right. That is a real problem, and we're seeing it more and more and more. And so we have to come up with a way to handle this better.
I think one of the things that, even I'll go back to when I was serving, one of the things that occurred on a regular basis, the mission always became important and is important, when we're together. But I think as the mission became important and different things and deployment became, they avoided rules. There was a rule in the Air Force that you could not become PCS. You would become a PCS person, permanent change of station, if you served more than 179 days or 183 days. So they would sit down and they would deploy somebody for 179, bring them back for a week, and then deploy them for another 179. And that's as much as maybe they should change the rule of what PCS means or a permanent change of station means. I don't think that the military took into consideration what that meant to the troop. First off, all his benefits changed. He didn't get the rations. He didn't get the, all the things. And it was about money. It was about money, because it was cheaper to have a TDY person than to sit down and have a PCS person, because everything kicks. Once you go PCS, then all types of different things change. And that was never considered. It was like, you're in, this is what you do, and blah, blah, blah. I think hopefully we're progressing past that point. I know the Air Force is a little bit more up on that. I was at our Vietnam reunion. I spoke with the K9 guys over there, and they were at, was it over Patrick? Is that what's over on the coast? Yeah. They've been there. Yeah, they've been there 7 years.
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, it doesn't mean that we're taking the best and putting them all, shipping around. But the fact is, a 7-year deployment somewhere, a permanent change, is safer for them. They know what's going on, and mentally, it just serves them a lot better from what's going on. Is it always the best for the mission? I don't know. I can't speak to that piece. I know we're always in turmoil. But I was really surprised, because the longest PCS I ever saw was 3, and lots were 2. When I went remote, it was a 1 year. So I mean, and you don't come back. You go remote for a year and you're stuck. Okay, that's the way it works. So I know some of that's changed, but I hope some of that's being looked at too.
Yeah, so a couple of things that are changing. For example, if you have a special needs child, there are now opportunities to be stationed in places where there is support in the community, and there are opportunities to stay there longer.
Mm-hmm.
There are also, certainly we're looking at considering the whole person, but also the whole family. So making sure that we have spouses that have employment options and education opportunities as well. That has been getting a lot of press and a lot of action. There are some intricacies of that are not working very well, and those need to be handled, but by and large, the concept is definitely helpful. Still getting this feedback. It's driving me a little nutty.
Actually,
You're
I think
not hearing it at all?
No, I'm actually, it's quite getting banged on. You're plugging in. How are you now?
Yeah, it's a little better. It must just be on my end then. That's fine.
If it's on your end, it's okay, because yesterday it wasn't.
Is.
I was on your end, because you were really disjointed yesterday. So.
Oh, were we?
Oh my. Yeah, and but we need to talk about that offline. We'll figure something out about that too. So
Yeah, well, it's hard to tell sometimes. So I try to have
right,
somebody watch, but sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't.
right,
So and it happens when I'm in more rural areas for
right,
sure.
right.
But yeah, so one of the things is definitely going to be the special needs considerations, the spousal support programs for education as well as for job placement. Also looking to kind of reframe the way that we look at military so that it is somewhat of an educational opportunity that we help you transition into a civilian position afterwards. So again, not always thinking of it as a lifetime commitment. And then, yes, you're correct. We have curbed how long you are overseas unless there are major issues that require, or that you have special skills that require you to be deployed for longer, but not just because you came back or for monetary reasons to send you back.
Right.
Because we are finding between PTSD and suicide, you just cannot push people that hard. You
No.
cannot. They do break.
Yeah. Yeah. And what happens also is that it creates major conflicts within the family when they come back.
Yes.
So I think that has to be a large consideration from that standpoint. We saw a lot of it on troops coming back from Vietnam and anywhere else, Thailand, it doesn't matter. When they were coming back, once they returned, there wasn't a lot of support for the returnee, meaning they were just sent back and then expected to fold right into, naturally back into the military, into the base wherever they were sent and where they ended up. And I think that was okay if from in the old days for some reason. Well, it's never okay, but the fact is that's what happened. And the thing is, we just have to, I think, if we're going to have a much better volunteer force, I mean, and we're not going to have the disruptions that goes along with a drafted force. We need to do a better job, or at least accomplish. It sounds like we're working on it, but are we accomplishing it? I think that all the forces are different, though. I mean, the Army is different than the Marines. The Marines are different than the Navy. I don't
What?
think
They're not all the same?
oh my, what a revelation. Um,
I mean that tongue in cheek if anyone's watching.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, they have very different cultures and very different missions,
absolutely.
And that also affects their families. And
Mm-hmm.
so I can say this: we are definitely making strides. There are activities that are happening to try and help. There is something that I would say is missing that I have found as I have been traveling, and that is the lack of coordination between the service member, active duty, transitioning, and then long-term support, and all the community programs that exist. I am confident that we have the volunteers, the partners, the money, the contributors, the vet programs available.
Yeah.
What we're missing is the communication and coordination piece. The federal government could do a substantially better job in making sure that we have those coordinating units around the country and almost every city, and it would cost very, very little money because it's multiplied by all the programs that are already in existence. I have seen that in city after city after city after city. That's the target.
I thought what's really been interesting in listening to the last 4 or 5 discussions with the folks in IOC and the gentleman you had on yesterday and the different things like this. I mean, the resources are,
they're amazing.
Amazing. And I thought his comments yesterday were extraordinary from the standpoint that I felt that, his take was veterans need to take care of veterans. And that stuck with me rather than just saying, well, the federal government should take care of veterans all the time. I mean, he was quite upfront about it. He was very plain that, he understood that the mission is important and it has to get done, and that's what the government should be focusing on. Veterans, when we get out, we're the ones that should help our, fellow vets take care, get things done, whether it's entering businesses. He was really, in that incubator type situation, trying to get that done. But I don't know, he said some staggering number, like in the thousands of
Yep.
type of support mechanisms out there that people don't really understand or know about. And I think Gary is one of those people that, is,
Yep.
really works in that environment. But I think I think if there's a position that needed to be done, would be the clearinghouse manager of that type of environment.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. Yes.
Yeah.
Because it would be very low cost, but it would multiply all of the efforts that everyone else is paying for, putting in the volunteer hours, etc. We need to make sure that gets to our vets. And just to clarify, there is a difference between Department of Defense and Department of Veterans Affairs.
Mm-hmm,
and so the VA absolutely should be helping with the vets. Fair enough that maybe the Pentagon is not always the one to do that. What we were doing much more in the Pentagon is that coordination piece, not substantially getting away from mission, but nonetheless recognizing that there needs to be a handoff, right? A connection from DoD to VHA, to VA and VHA. So that's Health and Veterans Affairs. But yes, I think that's exactly it. That is your target win. Make sure that you are paying for the coordinator, and then making sure that coordinator is connecting all the services for vets and connecting to vets directly. That's where you're going to have, I think, the biggest win. And if we could circle that to, and the family members. We need to recognize they may not be on the front line, but they are absolutely standing right next to them.
Yeah, and because our subject is families, we really, the resources that are available through so many different, venues and stuff, and I think it goes back to the personal support from their neighbors and whatever. I think that's critical too. Is that, when I was in, it was we supported each other for a lot of different reasons and what was going on, and the folks took care of each other, and it's no different than the neighbor across the street now, but it was a much tighter knit group when you were in the military than you are in a lot of circumstances, because we all knew what we were doing. We were all, having to be shipped into different areas, and so the welcome wagon was and I'll use that term loosely, but the fact is, you were welcomed in because everybody knew what you were going to be going through. The biggest strike, and I think that's why the longer deployment section. If you talk to a child who's been, a child in the military and was from school to school to school to school to school, they have less attachment. They've learned how to detach rather than to attach. And that lingers throughout their life.
Yes.
They can remain detached easily. Yeah. It's a part of their psyche, and, good, bad, or indifferent. I don't know how we get around that. I don't know if there's a possibility for that.
There is, yeah. So one of the really big benefits of the DoDEA system, which is the Department of Defense Education System, is that, and I saw that when I was overseas, because part of my duties has been to also work with the children, and so I went in to collect some data with them, and that is what I saw, is that they were able to connect, because these were kids whose parents were all in the same boat, and who they may have been traveling, but they had been to some of the same schools, and they knew some of the same people, and so they had, and now with the virtual connections, they're able to maintain those friendships, and it makes a big difference. So I really want to lift up the DoDEA system and recognize the benefits of kids being in those programs versus moving from a school where only a few kids are in the military, another school where only a few kids are in the military. So they have outside friend groups, and you are the outsider coming in. In this case, everybody is coming and going. And so there's actually a rhythm there's almost structure to that lack of structure.
Right.
And the kids have developed them themselves, and it's very impressive to watch. And I think that structure will make them more resilient going forward instead of more detached.
Yeah, I hope so. I think because it's vitally important for their futures and what they want to do with the rest of their lives. In some occasions, it's added to their life because they've been to, foreign lands, been to places that they never would have been able to travel to in the past or whatever, and been exposed to cultures they never would have. Things and that part I think is exciting and certainly a good part to what's going on. But the fact that we don't know precisely what's going on in that, it's good to hear, because I think what I hear is that they could be going to the same place, meaning that they have friend Jane. Oh, well, we just came out of Italy, or we just came out of
That's
Japan,
exactly right.
and you guys are going there. Do this, or go and figure this out. Because when you get there, the school is this way, or the school is that way, or whatever. So.
And one more step. And this is my friend Joe and my friend Jane.
Yeah.
And so when you get there, here, I'll get you online right now with them, and we'll all connect. And when you switch to that new place, we're still all connecting, and we're talking about the same things. And so these kids really are creating their own kind of subculture of what I call distributed friends.
Wow.
And so, it was really great to watch the kids do that. So I think it's a great place to end, Dad. And
I know we could go on for a long time.
I know.
Let's do one. I want to do one last thing.
Okay.
For everyone that's watching, we need to
donate.
Donate. That was it. Fundraising.
Was that a quiz?
No.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure everybody.
I know. Wait till my newsletter comes out today. We've been just racking our brains how one fundraises in a way that maybe is a little bit different than the begging that's been going on. And I'm challenging the system. Well, and I don't know if there's another way. That doesn't mean I'm not going to ask the question.
Right.
But to start with, in order to do this, we need people to donate. If you've got $5, $20, $100, $500, if you know a friend who's got 3,000, send them my way. I am totally unafraid to ask for money. That's what in all these seminars and political trainings, they all say, don't be afraid. I said, I'm not afraid. That doesn't bother me. People know how this works. I think the difficulty is that people want to tell you the sky is falling, everything's terrible, so send me money and I'll make it better. And bluntly, America's tired of that. They're tired. Yeah. And so the sky isn't falling. There are problems. We need to fix them. We need to address them. But the world is not imploding.
No.
And I'm just not a fatalist, and I am not someone who cries wolf. If I say the world is imploding, you should be worried.
You better be running for the hill,
because I won't say it unless it really matters. But yes, the reality is, if we want to figure out how to solve these problems without more taxes, we want to make sure that we have an economy that is working without forced tariffs. And I'm getting wait till we get into the economy on this one, because I'm already talking to a lot of folks. We're going to have to donate some money to somebody who is going out and finding solutions. And as I tell people all the time, you do not need me to win for this to be impactful.
No.
All you need is for us to plant the seed, to make a change, and to start recognizing we have all the resources, all the capabilities in this nation that we need. So donate, because I promise you, we will multiply that money. Was that a good enough plug, Dad?
There we go. We're going to end every one of these. We're going to end every discussion with this going on, because I think the concepts, ideas, and people have to believe in this, that change is where we're going and what we're going to do, and understand that we have to live within the system somewhat that we already does exist in order to make changes to it. So
that's right. That's right. Thanks so much, Dad. See you next time.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.